What is up, you guys? Welcome back. Long time no see. You know, it's your boy Jose. So today, as you see, we have the SI lifted up right here. You might be wondering, what are we doing to the SI? So today we're gonna be doing a good old clutch install, because you know my brother's clutch is slipping. It's giving him a funny error code, which I don't know why, but it's like pretty much saying put it in park. And as you guys know, the SI is a manual, not an automatic. Whatever, we're gonna be go ahead and just installing this clutch, replacing it. Hopefully that fixes our problem. But without further ado, let's get to it. All right, one of the first things we're gonna have to do is remove both wheels on each side of the car. But I mean, it's a process, so bear with us. I mean, we'll try to show you guys everything that we have to do to change this clutch, but first things first is remove the wheels. The wheel has wheel locks. Remember to use your wheel lock. You have it like that. The nuts are removed. Go ahead and take off the wheel. And for us, we like to be safe here, so we put the wheel under the brake rotor, so just in case our jack stands fail, this falls, we're at least pretty much hopefully safe. Before we start on anything removing electrical connectors, we want to disconnect the battery. But we are gonna have to remove the battery tray just so we could get to other bolts and all that, so we have room. Alright, so as my brother explained, before you do anything electrical in your car, make sure you disconnect at least the ground. But for this, we do have to remove the whole battery itself and the tray, because you see right there, and there's some shifter cables we are gonna have to remove. Well, the brackets, we're gonna have to remove the brackets in order to remove the transmission. So that's the whole reason we remove the battery and the battery tray. So the next step is to go down here and it is remove this splash guard right here, and we are actually have to remove this plastic like kind of splash guard for the whole car that runs all the way towards the middle. Flathead, Phillips, all around, and then like this right here, just follow the plastic clips. If anything, I'll show you guys after we remove this how many clips there are, and obviously we have to remove it from the bumper as well. So yeah, so the next step is pretty much removing the shield right here, and then this plastic thing that runs along the sides of the car all the way to the end. So let's go ahead and start removing that. Next, we're going to remove all these clips. Like that. This other splash guard has mostly these clips on them. So just go ahead and follow them. It goes alongside the car to the sides. And then right here up front, you have a lot. I mean, just a couple. And then two Allen keys that are alongside the front bumper. That should do it. Go ahead and remove this. Alright guys, as you guys see, we have the secondary shield down right here coming off. Like see right here, there's a clip right here. We need to take that one off, and it'll let us remove this whole secondary shield off. This will be my third time. The 2 times was because I was installing front sway bars. If you don't know, then check out the YouTube video we did on that. Of course, we're gonna have to remove the subframe this time because we are taking out the transmission. Alright guys, as you see, we have the secondary splash guard out. The primary one, I mean the one that you was to take off to do your oil changes. You can see there's clips all along it, and there's 2 410s in the back, and then 1 12 in the middle, and these go on the wheel. Next, we're gonna go ahead, come down here and drain the transmission fluid. We have our handy dandy pen down here. We can go ahead and get a 3/8 ratchet to get that loose and drain our transmission fluid before we start. Alright guys, before we actually drain it, we're gonna go ahead and remove the fuel bolt just in case we're unable to fill it. We're gonna go ahead and remove that first before we drain it. So my brother here is gonna do it real quick. Before you take it off, make sure you clean the whole area just in case so you don't get anything in your transmission. You could do it from top, but you need a better extension. I got my big old extension for the 3/8 adapter. I made it so easy. There you go, the full bolt is out. But we'll just put it right there for now, and then once we drain the transmission, we'll have it a little bit tight on just so you can fill it up later. Alright, so next to drain the bottom, you need 3/8. Snug. I'm going to finish it. And it cracked. Alright. I don't usually wear gloves, but due to previous injuries, I started wearing gloves. All right, let that drain. All right, you guys saw it splashed, so I had to pull a pan up so it doesn't splash all over me. But now we have to investigate why there's some silver findings in there. I'm just kidding. It looks pretty good. After it's done draining, obviously when we put it back together, we're actually gonna, you see here, there's a little washer right there that we're gonna have to replace. For now, we're just gonna let it drain and move on to the next step, which is actually remove the axle nuts and the axle itself. Let's go ahead and do that. It's done draining, so we're gonna go ahead and remove the old washer and put in the new washer. Before that, we'll go ahead and clean up these threads and put it back in the transmission. All right, reinstalling our drain plug with the new washer, and we clean the threads with some good old brake fluid. Go ahead and reinstall it. First, of course, you want to do is tighten it by hand. You never want to use an impact gun on this because you could strip the threads, and that's expensive. So just gotta solder this oil. Go ahead and clean that up a bit. Then we're gonna get our handy dandy torque wrench. So we're gonna torque this to 32 foot-pounds. You hear the crack? It's time to stop. So let's move to the front part and remove the axle. All right, so we'll go ahead and start removing the axle nuts. These are actually size 36, and luckily we have that thanks to Hopper Freight. And then after that, we can go ahead and remove the axles. And then after we remove both sides, it's the fun part when we remove subframe, the tie rod, the lower ball joint bolts, all that fun stuff that we've done before. So we can go ahead and drop the subframe and get on to unassembling the transmission. Go ahead and remove the axle nut.
So you see this little indent on the axle nut, so what we want to do is get a screwdriver or something and get it up so it doesn't hit the axle nut no more. So let's secure it. And then after you do that, you get your big old impact gun or something. You get it on there and then there you go. Axle nuts are removed. Just leave it right here for now. And we're gonna do the other side right now.
So right here in our video script, we actually have to drop the subframe before we remove the axles. Good thing my brother caught that because we would have been all out of whack. So we're gonna go ahead and come down here and start removing the subframe. But first we have to remove 3 little nuts on the ball joints. I believe these are 12 or 14. Like I said, I've done a video on this before, so we're not really gonna show much about this process. If you're really interested, go ahead and check out my front sway bar video. It goes more into detail. We are in a little time crunch to get this done. Go ahead and remove those lower ball joints. All right, so actually the lower ball joints are actually 17 in size. Just like that, you remove the 3 lower ball joints. All right, so my brother's down here. He's gonna go ahead and remove the axle on the driver's side. We figured that we don't need to remove the actual subframe by itself because we have a lot of room.
You get a pry bar right here into by the transmission, get it into by the axle so you can pry it out.
Guys, you guys see right here, we got the driver's side axle out. And the way we did it, it was kind of hard to record because I was having my brother pull it while he pried it. We can go ahead and got a flathead, put it in between the axle and the transmission, pried it while I was prying it. My brother pulled on it and we were able to get it out. So for the passenger side, you see the axle intact. There is a bracket right here in the middle. It's 3/14. As you can see, we already got it removed. But one thing you do have to note is the bolts are like in different lengths, so you are gonna have to separate them. As you can see here, they all have separate lengths. Well, I mean, the top 2, they look pretty the same. That's the bottom one. These are the top 2. But yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and get this out and pry it from the transmission like we did the driver's side, so we can get the passenger side axle out. So we got the passenger side out. One thing we did know is that on this side, can't really get to it, but all we did was pull on it and it came out. And my brother did make a checklist. We did do our research. We used the ACT reference video on how to install this, so that's how we're getting all our notes from. So my brother is gonna go ahead and make this available to you guys. So if you guys try to do this, you do have a checklist on what to remove, along with the link to the video that we used to this install and remove the transmission. So let's go ahead and next and remove the intake stuff. Alright guys, so the reason we took off the airbox, as you guys can see, it gives you better access to all the transmission connectors, browns, and all the good stuff that we are gonna have to take off. So obviously, if you have the stock intake box, you're gonna have a different process than we do. So that's why, like I said earlier, we are gonna link the video that we reference in order to get this done. So just in case you have a different intake or you have your stock intake, it's a whole different process. All right, next we are going to remove the slave cylinder from the transmission. Just like that, slave cylinder is removed. So it's 212s. All right, so next we're going to remove the bracket for the hydraulic line. It's a little 10. We're going to go ahead and remove that next. Like that, removing that 10. So next, pretty sure we're going to have to remove all these electrical connectors and that ground. That's right there.
Now electric connectors from the front of the transmission. Pretty easy, just gotta find a little clip and it'll come off.
Alright guys, when chopping the subframe, you do have to remove the end link. As you can see, I removed it. It's 214s. And then the tie rod end. Take off the cotter pin that's on there. Take it off completely. As you can see right here. Put the nut back. Let it sit flush right about there. Then get a hammer and hammer it down and you should get this to pop off. Alright, so next step on the transmission side, we're going to take off the shifter brackets. There's 3 bolts. One, as you can see right there, and there's another one on the side that we can barely get, and try to show as much as we can. But yep, next is shifter brackets. Alright guys, you guys can see we got the bracket out of the way. We pulled the shifter cables. See, it moves. Just make sure there's an electrical plug that goes right in here. Make sure to pull that. Alright guys, so I'm down here taking off the rear engine mount before we take off the subframe. Right here is a 17, this is a 19. As you can see for the subframe, it's a couple bolts. 1, 2, there's a 1 in the back. So same thing will follow. Same thing on the other side. And then one right here. And you do have to connect some 2 cables in the back. They're pretty simple. You just disconnect those. But after you take this off, you're gonna go ahead and remove those bolts I mentioned. Alright guys, you can see here we got the subframe removed. As you can see, there's 1 bolt, 2 bolt, 3 and 4, and dragged it out. But here we go. Then we have my brother down there taking off all the starter wires and brackets. So if you see any brackets on the transmission per se, that one and that one back there in black, if you guys see any brackets, remove them before you take out the transmission. So we're just making sure we took off any brackets, any wires before we actually start removing the transmission. But we have our jack ready to support the engine and transmission. Guys, you guys see we have the transmission pulled out. One thing I would have to say is on the top of the transmission, these 2 bolts are probably coming from this side instead of the outside, so it's pretty of a hassle. And then there's one down here, I forgot which of these 2, that hits the front pipe, but we were able to angle it to get the transmission out. Just like that, pressure plate is off. Flywheel, pressure plate, and the clutch behind it. As you see here, man installing the new light flywheel. Of course, hand tying the bolts before you torque them down. And obviously we're gonna do this in a star pattern. Right guys, so what man is doing here, he's hand tying all the bolts in the star pattern before he torques them down to 88 foot-pounds. There you have it. All boards have been torqued down to 88 pound-feet of torque. And as you saw, my brother marked them so you knew which one were torqued down. Successfully, flywheel installed. Alright, so we got the clutch. So what my brother's gonna do next is actually lubricate it. He did go for the 6-puck clutch from ACT. So that's what's going on next before we install it back into the car. Lubricate the splines lightly. Now what we could do is, in case there's too much, we'll put our alignment tool, run it, and then let's get our paper towel and wipe the front and the back of any extra lube. Alright, so with the alignment tool in and the clutch in, I'll hold the clutch in perfectly aligned while we go get the pressure plate, install it back into the car. Alright guys, as you guys see here, my brother has the good old pressure plate on. So hopefully we won't have to do this again anytime soon. Alright, as you guys saw, it's been installed, torqued down to spec. But it's a good experience to know how to replace your clutch on the Honda. So bear with us. See you guys tomorrow. Alright guys, so we just took out the fork. What you want to do is basically clean up all the old grease, use the new spline lube and all that, put on the spline, and also put on the shaft over there, and also at the contact points of your old bearings, so right here. And also on the pivot ball, you want to clean up the grease, of course, and put the spline lube that they included. But that's all. Basically, you want to make sure it clicked into place and it moves good. So now it's time to put this bad boy back in there. Hopefully we're able to do it in a day to put the car back together. Alright guys, you can see we got the transmission aligned with the engine. Put all the housing bolts in, slowly tying them, making sure. So next is just putting this all back together. But we're just making sure everything's aligned, everything's good, because it is the transmission. And obviously if it messes up, it's gonna be expensive. So that's what we're doing next, is just putting all the bolts in, and we'll give you an update shortly. Alright guys, we finally have the transmission, accessories, everything all connected up, all buttoned up. We just got done torquing down the subframe. We just need the lower ball joint, axle nut. My brother, as you can see here, he's filling up the transmission fluid with some good old AMS oil, just 2 quarts. We're making progress. Like I've told him, the hard part's over. It's just a lot of tedious work to make sure everything's perfect. I mean, I think we did a pretty good job for considering how we did it. We were able to get done. But yeah, so that's what we're doing now. Just gonna fill the transmission fluid, intake, battery, and like I said, lower ball joint, axle nuts, and that's it. And hopefully we get a good startup. Alright guys, we got everything connected, everything torqued down, good to go. Don't worry, we'll leave every torque spec that we did in the comments below, or a link available to you guys so you guys can follow along. My brother is anxious because he wants to start it, and hopefully we did good. First startup. Hey you guys, that's on the previous clip. It started, it's all good to go. So hopefully, you know, you're gonna put the wheels on and go drive it. Man, you put it in first gear, it's spinning faster. But I think we should go ahead and put the wheels on and go take it out for a test drive. But it was my first time replacing the clutch. You guys have good help and good tools, you should be able to do it. As you can see, my hands are pretty dirty from all the grease and all that buttoning up. But I think we're gonna go ahead and put the wheels back on, clean up the driveway, and take it out for a test drive.
test the slip. One more slip.
Hey you guys, so here we have the Civic. You're gonna see that little test drive. We got it back up and running, back together, and the clutch actually did fix my brother's problem. Car would automatically, well, sometimes tell him to shift it into drive. Obviously this is a manual, not an automatic, so we didn't know why it would do that. It fixed the 5th gear slip, fixed all his issues. You saw that. We went to a little road right here in Mexico, did some high-speed testing, because you know we test all our parts after we're done. But yeah, this fixed our issue. Finally, you know, it's been dry, so we finally were able to do it. It's not good up and running. Yeah, with any other install, you guys, you know, you're gonna run into some issues. So that's gonna do it for today, you guys. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.